The year is 2389, and war has burned across the stars like a wildfire leaving ash, where life once bloomed, and in the middle of this war stands a soldier named Sergeant Cole, a man who has seen too much blood and too little reason, and now his ship has crashed on a jungle world marked as Vir9, a planet no one talks about except in whispers. Cole opens his eyes to smoke and fire and the sound of something hissing, and the sky above is no longer black space but green clouds and glowing red vines that move like they are alive, and his leg is bleeding and his oxygen tank is cracked, and he knows he is alone. The rest of his team is gone. Limps forward through thick trees with black bark and eyes that blink from inside the leaves, and he hears things moving behind him, but nothing attacks, not yet, and then he hears breathing. And it is not his own, and it is not human. It is deep and slow and powerful like a sleeping storm. Waiting to wake, Cole turns his head slowly and sees it standing there, tall as a doorway, with blue skin and sharp lines across its chest, glowing like molten metal, and its eyes are bright yellow and locked onto him, and it does not move and it does not speak, and for a moment time itself seems to hold its breath. He raises his weapon with shaking hands, but the creature does nothing. It does not even flinch, and Cole can feel his heart beating like a drum in his chest, and he whispers to himself that this is it. This is how it ends, and still the alien just stands there. Then it steps forward just once, and its feet crack the vines, and Cole steps back, almost falling, and the alien raises one arm slowly, and in its hand is a device like a crystal with soft light pulsing inside, and it touches the device to Cole's chest. Cole feels a rush of heat, then cold, then nothing, and the world falls away from him like dust in the wind. He wakes up inside a cave. The walls are smooth, and the light is warm and soft, and his wounds are gone, not just covered, but healed, and his clothes are folded beside him, cleaned and patched, and for a moment he wonders if he is dead. But then the alien returns and sits across from him, and this time it speaks not with its own mouth, but through a strange little cube that floats between them, and the voice is deep and slow and broken. Clear enough, it says, "You are not enemy. I saw your pain and I helped." And Cole stares at it with confusion and asks why, and the alien answers, "Because you looked like me, once betrayed by your own." Name of the alien is Razun, and he says he was a warrior too, but he did not want to kill civilians, and his commanders turned on him, and now he lives here alone, hiding from both his kind and Cole's kind, and the war has no place for peace and no reward for mercy. Cole does not know what to say, because in all his training no one prepared him for this. A Kothar warrior, not fighting, not roaring, not killing, but healing and speaking, and alone they sit in silence for a long time, and outside something howls in the jungle, and Razun stands and says, "We must move the beasts, hunt by sound and smell and fear, and you carry all three." They travel through glowing forests and across rivers that sing, and trees that bleed when cut. And Cole starts to notice things like how Razun always walks ahead to protect him, how he shares food without being asked, and how he seems to mourn every creature they are forced to kill in defense. At night, Cole asks about the device that healed him, and Razun says it was once a tool used by Cathar medics before they were replaced by machines and orders. And Cole asks why he still carries it, and Razun answers, "Because I still believe in saving life." Cole remembers his own battles and how many times he pulled the trigger without knowing who was on the other side, and now he wonders if maybe not all Cathar were monsters, maybe not all humans are heroes, and maybe both sides have lost more than they know. As they rest in ruined temple of black stone, Razun suddenly stops moving and says, "We are not alone," and Cole looks up to see red eyes blinking from the shadows, and a low growl echoing through the walls, and the ground begins to shake. The ceiling cracks, and something huge crashes through, and Cole sees metal claws and teeth and red lights, and it is a war drone, old but deadly, and it has locked onto him. Voice echoes from inside the machine, cold and sharp, saying, "Human target identified, eliminate." Cole grabs his weapon, but Razun is already moving, pulling him away and shouting, "We must not fight here, it will destroy everything." And Cole looks back at the machine and sees it charging power and preparing to fire. And in that moment, Cole knows. This is just the beginning, and whatever this planet holds, it will test everything he thought he knew about war enemies and what it truly means to survive. The first thing Cole feels is pain, not from wounds, but from sound a deep roar like thunder. Inside a metal box shaking the ground like a heartbeat of a dying god, and then silence again, sharp and sudden like the breath before a scream. War Drone stands where the ancient temple once was, its heavy feet crushing stone, its red eyes scanning, and its weapons humming with power, and Cole lies hidden under broken roots with Ra. Zuan beside him, breathing slow and quiet like a hunter waiting in tall grass. They should be dead. The drone should have seen them, but Razun did something. Cole does not understand a kind of signal wave that confused the machine just long enough for them to crawl away now. They are deeper in the forest, far from the ruin, and far from any hope of rescue. And Cole wants to speak, but his throat is dry. And his heart feels heavy, because what he saw back, there was not just a weapon, it was history coming alive. It was the ghost of the war they both tried to leave. Behind, Razun finally speaks, and his voice is tired not from running, but from remembering. He says that drone was one of ours, long lost in the last battle of Sector V. And now it hunts anything that breathes and follows old commands from dead generals. Cole asked why it attacked him, and not Razun, and the alien answers because it still sees humans as the enemy, and I am already forgotten by my own. They walk in silence for hours, moving through shadows and light, until they find shelter in a hollow tree large enough to sleep inside, and there Cole finally asks the question that has burned in his mind since the crash. Why did you help me? Why didn't you let me die like the rest? Zuan does not answer right away. Instead, he lights a small fire using a glowing stone and dry leaves. And then he reaches into a pouch and takes out a small carved symbol, something that looks like a sun split in half, and says, "This is my bond token, once given only to allies, once shared only in trust." Places it between them on the ground and looks into the fire and says, "Long ago, before the war, there were human voices on Cathar ships, peaceful ones, voices of trade and talk and learning and laughter. But then came fear and orders and fire, and now only ashes remain." Cole touches the token and feels a strange warmth, like a pulse, like it is alive, and Razun says, "If you take this, you accept bond, and that means we share fate, life or death together." Cole thinks about his past, about friends lost in missions that ended in silence, and commanders who cared more about numbers than names, and he looks at Razun not as a monster or an alien, but as a soldier like him, tired, broken, and still standing. He picks up the token and nods, and Razun lets out a slow breath like relief, and says, "Then we are no longer alone." Bond is not just words, it is something deeper, something old, something Cathar once believed could connect souls in battle, and now it connects two enemies who should have killed each other, but chose to walk the same path. They begin to train together. Razun teaching Cole the way of Cathar, movement, balance, and strength, not just in the body, but in the heart, and Cole teaching Zuan how humans think, how they react, how they survive with less and hope with more. Every day, they become faster, stronger, and something more than just survivors. They become a team not of blood, but of choice. And that makes it stronger than any uniform or flag. But peace never lasts, not here. One night the trees shake with noise, something mechanical, something large, and Cole climbs a hill to see a light in the sky, a blinking light, blue and sharp and steady, and he knows what it means, an Earth signal beacon nearby, and broadcasting that means others are coming, maybe rescue, maybe death, he tells Razun. And for the first time the alien looks afraid, not for himself, but for Cole, because he knows what will happen if humans find him with an enemy. Cole says, "We'll figure it out," but even as he says it, he feels doubt growing like vines in his mind, pulling at his thoughts. That night he cannot sleep, and neither can Zuan, and the fire between them burns low, and the bond token sits in the center, glowing gently as if watching and waiting, and far in the distance a human voice crackles through Static saying mission active, proceed to eliminate. Cathar targets on sight, no survivors. Cole hears it and feels something shift inside him, not fear, not anger, but something colder, the understanding that he may have to choose between the truth and the orders, between the past and the future. Razuan places a hand on Cole's shoulder and says softly, we fight together or we die alone. And Cole closes his eyes and whispers, then we fight. It begins with a scream, not human, not alien, but something wild, something older than both, something that crawls through trees and dreams, with red eyes and black wings, and sharp voices that echo even after they vanish. Cole wakes up fast, sweat cold down his backhand, already on his weapon, heart racing like a drum in a burning city, and beside him, Razuan is already standing still as stone, listening to the jungle breathing around them. Forest is too quiet, no wind, no insects, no birds, just silence that feels like it's waiting for something, and that the ground shifts just a little, like something heavy just touched the earth far away. Razuan says, it is not your people, not mine, something else, something wrong, and they move fast, grabbing what little gear they have and leaving the tree shelter behind, because staying still now is death. As they run, Cole sees flashes in the sky, strange colors flickering like ghosts, and feels static crawling across his skin, and Razuan mutters words in his own tongue, words that feel like prayers or warnings, or maybe both. They find a cliff edge with a wide view of the jungle, and there they see it moving through the trees, a creature large and dark, with limbs that move like smoke and metal, eyes and a body stitched together from bones and steel and sorrow. Razuan whispers, old guardian, broken by time now, it hunts everything. And Cole asks, what is a guard? And Razuan answers, the core, the heart of this place, what the ancients left behind. They watch as the monster destroys a group of scout drones, ripping them apart without sound, without mercy, and then it disappears into the fog like a nightmare, turning its head once just for a moment as if it knows it's being watched. Razuan says, we must go there, to the core, and Cole asks why, and Razuan answers, because the truth sleeps there. And if we wake it, maybe war can end, maybe something better can begin. They begin the climb down the cliff through vines that whisper and stones that hum, and the jungle grows thicker, darker, alive in ways Cole can feel in his bones and in his blood. On the way they find ruins, old tar structures covered in moss and light blue crystals that glow when touched, and inside one chamber they find a map, ancient and moving, showing the whole planet with one place pulsing bright, deep underground. Razuan touches the map and it responds, opening a new path in the jungle. And Cole says, your people were amazing, and Razuan answers, we were. Once more than war, more than fear, we built wonders before we burned them down. As they follow the hidden path, Cole asks why Razuan learned English, why he saved human voices from the old days, and Razuan says, because I believed we'd need them again someday, and now that day has come. They talk more now as they walk, not like soldiers, not like enemies, but like people trying to understand. And Cole shares stories of Earth, not just battles, but cities, oceans, music, laughter, and Razuan listens like every word is precious. They laugh once, real laughter, when Cole tries to say a tar word and gets it wrong so badly it means broken toilet instead of peaceful friend, and for a moment they are not from different worlds, they are just two beings trying to survive. That night they rest near a waterfall glowing with strange light, and Razuan begins teaching Cole the bond ritual, not just symbols and words, but movements, breathing, memory, and meaning passed down from warrior to warrior. Cole learns fast, not because he's strong, but because he's open, and Razuan tells him the bond is not about blood or strength. It is about standing together even when everything falls apart. In the morning they are attacked not by beasts, not by drones, but by a new human recon team dropping from orbit with scanners and guns, and voices sharp with orders and fear. Cole pulls Razuan into hiding, but it's too late. A flare goes up, a scanner pings, and the shouting begins. Human contact, alien contact, orders to fire, orders to take no chances. Cole steps out with hands raised, shouting, wait, listen, he's not the enemy. He saved me, we can end this war. but the soldiers only see the armor, only see the target, and they open fire. Razun grabs Cole, pulls him down, and shields him with his body, and then runs with him into the trees, moving fast, silent like a shadow built of muscle and rage and memory. They escape barely bleeding and tired and angry, and Cole says they're not going to listen, and Razun says, then we make them see. They reach the entrance of the core, a great stone door covered in ancient carvings, and Razun places his hand on the center, and it glows and opens with a sound like wind, remembering something long forgotten. Inside is not a weapon, but a story, a place filled with holograms and recordings from before the war, showing humans and Cathar shaking hands, building bridges, dreaming together, and Cole stands there watching a version of history he never knew, and feels something inside him crack open and grow new. And he turns to Razun and says, we have to show this to everyone. Razun nods and answers, then we make our stand here, truth or death together. It begins with a voice, not from a throat, not from a mouth, but from the walls, the floor, the air itself, speaking in calm, gentle tones from centuries ago, as if the planet is remembering how peace once sounded. Cole and Razun stand in the ancient hall deep inside the mountain, surrounded by glowing panels, moving images and echoes of a past hidden from both their worlds, and the room feels alive like it's breathing with old stories waiting to be heard. A projection rises from the center, showing the human ambassador and a Cathar elder side by side, smiling, laughing, speaking in harmony, and Cole feels his throat tighten, because no one ever showed this, no one ever told this part. Razun steps forward and says, as before the fires, before the fleets, before the orders to kill and burn and conquer, this is when we built together, when we dreamed the same sky. Next image shows the moment it all broke, a human ship crashing near Tar space weapons, hot crew panicked and firing too soon, and the Cathar defense systems responding with deadly force and fear, spreading faster than light. Cole watches as both sides begin to twist the truth. News reports filled with fear and hate, generals shouting commands, maps turning red, children learning to fear faces they've never seen, and Razun says, this is what I tried to stop. I was there when the lies were planted. I spoke out and they silenced me, branded me a traitor, and sent me to the dark corners of the galaxy to die in silence. Cole feels his hands shaking, not from fear, but from fury, because everything he fought for, everything he believed, everything he killed for, was built on a lie, and the truth was buried under medals and orders and silence. He looks at Razun and says, we have to take this back to command, we have to make them see, and Razun says they will not believe, but Cole answers, then we make them listen. They copy the data onto a crystal device shaped like a shard of light, and as soon as it leaves the core, the ancient systems react with alarm warning signals pulsing across the jungle, alerting every satellite, every drone, every enemy near and far. Now they are hunted not just by machines, not just by beasts, but by the story itself, by the weight of truth that others have buried too deep to face. As they escape the mountain, the sky changes color, ships move above the clouds, and a voice cuts through the static, cold and clear. This is Commander Holly of Earth Forces Unit Omega. Surrender the alien now and you will not be harmed. Cole answers with the truth, sending the first file transmission across the open channel, showing the images of peace, the real history, and he says, this war started with fear, and we're going to end it with truth, but the response is silence, then weapons locking on, then fire from the sky. Razun grabs Cole and dives through the trees as explosions tear the earth open, and the jungle screams and the ancient ruins crack and fall, and above it all the voice keeps repeating one order over and over: eliminate Cathar presence, terminate breach protocol. They run until their legs burn, until their lungs scream, until the only sound is the pounding of their feet and the whisper of the crystal data pulsing with light in Cole's hand. They reach a hidden valley where Razun says, we make our stand here. This is the last place they will expect, the last place truth might still live. And Cole nods, because running is no longer an option, and hiding is no longer enough. That night, They build a signal tower from broken tech human and alien, spliced together like their bond, and Cole works with fire in his eyes and steel in his hands. And Razun stands guard like a silent storm ready to break when the signal is ready. Cole sends the message across all open frequencies images, voice records proof of everything, and a final message in his own voice, saying if you hear this, you've been lied to. The war is not what they told you, and this story is not over. And somewhere out there someone is listening, but not everyone wants peace. The next morning brings fire again, but this time not from the sky. This time from the jungle itself, human troops moving fast and quiet and deadly, and among them Cole sees a face he knows. Sergeant Luma, once his friend, now his hunter. She raises her weapon and shouts traitor, and Cole raises his hands and shouts, wait, listen, we can't go back, we can only move forward. And he throws her the crystal and says, see for yourself, but she does not catch it. She shoots it. Crystal shatters, light exploding like a dying star, and for a moment time stops and Razun roars, not in pain but in rage and grief, and Cole feels something inside him break, and from the shadows something else awakens. The old guardian, the monster of steel and bone, drawn by the energy, drawn by the fire, drawn by the bond, now burning with fury. It rises behind the soldiers with eyes red as death and teeth like broken swords, and in that moment human and Cathar and traitor and truth all become very small. Cole turns to Razun and says together, and Razun answers always. It begins not with noise but with silence. The kind of silence that comes after something ancient wakes, the kind of silence that presses against your chest and makes you forget how to breathe. Guardian stands tall, its body a broken monument of metal, bone and fury, red light burning from its chest like a forgotten sun, and every human soldier who was ready to shoot now stands frozen, watching death made real. Zuan moves first, without a sound, without a second thought, not toward safety, but toward danger, because that is what loyalty looks like. Not a word, not a promise, but a choice made in the fire. He leaps onto the Guardian's leg, using strength older than war, climbing its armor like a mountain, and striking at exposed wires with bare hands glowing with Cathar energy, and the machine roars in rage, swinging its arm wide and smashing trees like twigs. Cole shouts his name and rushes forward, not away, even when a second soldier grabs his arm, yelling, don't do it, he's not one of us. And Cole answers without turning, yes, he is more than any of you ever were. Then chaos explodes, bullets flying, shouts rising, the jungle burning from all sides, and still Cole runs toward the Guardian, because he knows if Zuan falls now, it all ends here. Not just them, not just the truth, but the only hope of something better. Luma is there too, her gun aimed at both of them, torn between orders and memory, and her voice cracks when she calls out, Cole, stand down, or I'll shoot. And Cole turns to her, eyes full of fire, and says, then shoot, but I'm not standing down. She doesn't pull the trigger. Razun reaches the core of the Guardian, jamming a shard of Cathar crystal into its heart, and for a second the machine stutters. Its red eyes flicker, and its body shakes like it remembers being something else. But then it grabs him, hurls him across the field, and he crashes into the earth with a sound that makes Cole's legs buckle and his voice break. He doesn't think, he just moves, dives under the machine's swing, climbs after Razun calling his name over and over. And when he reaches him, Razun is still breathing, but barely, his chest rising slow, his voice a whisper. He says, I broke the shield, but I am not enough alone. And Cole answers, you're not alone, not anymore. And he reaches into his pack and pulls out the last signal shard, one they saved in case the others were destroyed together. They push it into the machine's heart, and light explodes across the sky like a flare that screams not in pain but in hope. And the Guardian begins to fall, its limbs shuddering, its core melting, and as it collapses, Cole grabs Razun and shields him with his own body dust. Rises, fire fades, and the world goes quiet again, this time with something new, not silence, but stillness, the kind that comes when violence stops for the first time in too long. Luma approaches slowly, her weapon lowered, her face unreadable, and she kneels beside them, looking at Razun, then at Cole, and says, is he still alive? And Cole answers not for long, unless we help she doesn't speak for a while. Just looks at the broken machine, the smoking trees, the two soldiers who chose something else, and finally she taps her cums and says medevac, now 2 wounded 1. Cathar repeat 1 Cathar ally prepare for extraction. The reply comes with static and disbelief, but she says it again louder, clearer, this time with her badge number and rank, and the silence that follows feels like a dam breaking. They lift Razun onto a stretcher made of jungle vines and plasma cloth, and Cole holds his hand. The whole way back, not because he has to, but because he wants to, because he knows that bond is not just in words or weapons or shared battles. It's in what you hold on to when everything else is falling apart. On the ship back to orbit, Razun opens his eyes once and says, "Did we make them see?" And Cole nods with tears in his eyes and says, "Yes, or at least we made them." Look, then Razun smiles just a little and says, "Then my life was not wasted," and closes his eyes again as sleep takes him. Not death, not yet, just rest. And Cole sits beside him, quiet heart full of things too big to say. Behind them, Earth Command watches the footage from the crystal fragments, the truth spreading like fire across every screen, every station, and the people begin to ask questions, begin to doubt, begin to hope, but not all are ready. In the shadows of space, someone watches without blinking, a Tar warlord, exiled and bitter, whose face twists at the images of Razun standing beside a human, and says one bond does not end a war. And somewhere far from all of them, a second guardian begins to stir. It begins with a heartbeat, but not human, not Kothar, not anything that belongs to flesh or blood. It is the heartbeat of a machine buried deep in black soil of a forgotten moon, pulsing once every 60 seconds, like a clock counting down to something no one remembers and everyone will fear. In a dark chamber, lit only by red symbols, a figure stands alone, watching screens that show Earth ships moving, Cathar outposts, blinking Cathar and human faces sharing tables, sharing words, sharing something dangerous, trust. The figure is tall, cloaked, armored, a Tar warlord who never accepted peace, never surrendered, never forgot what it cost him when Razun chose mercy over power. And now he watches the galaxy beginning to turn and says one word in a voice like a blade ready to cut everything again, reset. And far away above the jungle planet where Cole and Razun made their stand, a satellite picks up the same pulse, the same signal, and Earth Command receives a message, not from an enemy, not from a ship, but from the planet itself, from ancient Cathar tech once thought dead. The message is not in words, it is in code, old and sharp and impossible to trace. But its meaning is clear. Awakening protocol, activated, final sequence in motion. Cole hears this message while sitting beside Razun in a medbay high above the planet, looking down at the world where everything changed, and he knows it is not over, because peace is never a door you walk through. Once it is a wall you build every day, and someone is always trying to tear it down. Razun is healing slowly, body wrapped in biotech skin and light, and his voice is faint but steady. And when Cole tells him about the signal, his eyes darken, and he says they are trying to finish what they started, but this time it will not be war. This time it will be extinction. They go to command together. Still watched, still doubted, still feared, but now listened to, and they show the warning, show the map, show the pulse, and say, if we don't act now, we lose everything again. And maybe for good. Command hesitates, because that is what command does. And while they think, while they talk, the second guardian rises from the desert of a mining colony, tearing through rock and metal, sending one clear signal to every ship, every station, every mind that listens. Prepare to cleanse. This time the guardian is bigger, faster, made from war tech fused with ancient power. And it does not care who fired first, it only sees two sides, alive or dead, and it marches without words, without mercy. Panic spreads across systems, Earth fleets scramble, Cathar warriors prepare, and old fears rise from cold corners of memory. And once again voices begin to ask, can we trust them? Can we trust humans? Can we trust? Catharcally answers before anyone else can. He steps into the broadcast room, opens all channels, stands in front of both flags, and says this is not their war. This is not your war. This is not our war. This is the war of ghosts of mistakes that should have stayed buried. He points to Razun standing behind him, not as a prisoner, not as an enemy, but as a survivor, a symbol, and says, "This warrior saved me. This warrior fought beside me. This warrior showed me the truth, and if you cannot see that, then you are already blind." And his voice travels through space, through ships, through people who have never met him, and many of them listen. Many of them begin to choose, and for the first time human and tar ships move together toward the signal, toward the second guardian. The final battle does not begin with weapons. It begins with decisions. Commanders choosing to fight side by side, pilots trusting their wingmates who speak another language, soldiers landing together not to destroy but to stop something older than both their species. Cole and Razun lead the first wave, landing near the ancient core of the desert moon, where the guardian stands waiting, its limbs humming, its eyes fixed on them, and Cole says, "If we die, changing everything." And Razun nods and answers, "Then we live in every choice they make after." They fight like bonded fire and storm, Razun breaking armor with strikes that echo through stone. Cole planting charges, dodging claws, shooting weak points, calling targets, and every hit they take together. Ships fall, soldiers rise, sand turns to glass, and above it all, the Guardian begins to crack, not from force, but from interference. Caithar code flooding its core, not to destroy, but to confuse, to remind, to open. Its machine mind to Memori. Azuin steps forward one final time unarmed, placing his hand on the Guardian's chest, and speaks in the ancient tongue, soft and strong, and the machine shudders, trembles, shakes, then goes still, its lights fading, its weapons dropping. And in the silence that follows, no one moves, no one breathes. And then slowly, one by one, everyone lowers their weapons and looks to the two figures standing in the dust. One human, one Caithar, not enemies, not symbols, just people who chose to trust, and in doing so changed the shape of the future. But far in the dark, beyond the reach of peace, the warlord watches and says one word again, "Not yet." It begins with a name not written in stone, not carved into metal, but whispered across stars, a name carried in quiet voices, passed from station to station, from world to world, not as a command, not as a title, but as a memory. They call him the soldier who chose to see. They call him the alien who chose to feel, and together they are remembered not for what they destroyed, but for what they saved, not for the war they ended, but for the bond they began. Years have passed since the second Guardian fell, and the dust of the battlefield became the roots of something new, something no one thought possible, something they once called foolish. Peace now. A new station orbits between Earth and the Caithar homeworld, built from both hands, shaped by both dreams, filled with both languages, and at the heart of it stands a monument, not tall, not shining, but humble, a simple sculpture of two warriors, standing back to back, eyes forward, hands lowered, not raised. Children gather there every cycle, listening to the guide's voice as she tells the story of Razun and Cole, not as heroes, not as legends, but as people who made one choice again and again, to trust. When it was hardest to trust, inside the council chambers, a meeting begins with silence. Not out of fear, but out of respect, because today is the first time a human and a Tar will be elected to lead the station together, and the air feels heavy, not with tension, but with hope. Cole sits quietly near the edge of the room, older now, slower, scars across his face and hands that shake when he closes them too tight. But his eyes are still sharp, still watching, still waiting. Does not speak much these days, does not need to, because the world around him speaks enough, carries the weight of everything he and Razun started. Razun is gone now, his body finally giving in years, after the last battle, not in pain, not in fear, but in peace, surrounded by the sounds of birds he loved and lights he helped build. His last words, a simple sentence, "Tell them I stayed," and Cole did. In the center of the room, a recording plays, one no one has seen before, one Cole kept hidden until now, a message from Razun recorded during his final week, his voice soft, cracked, but clear. Says peace is not given, it is chosen, and chosen again and again by people who are tired of fighting, tired of losing, tired of forgetting why they ever stood at all. and if you are hearing this, then it means you still have a choice. The room is quiet. Long after the message ends and outside the stars move slow and steady like they always have, like they always will, but not all stars shine for good. Far beyond the Council Station, deep in the unlit reaches of old Cathar space, something waits. Something silent, something ancient, something that watched everything and learned. Nothing. The warlord who once whispered, not yet, now speaks louder, building new machines. Darker, faster, crueler, not for survival, not for justice, but for revenge, and his ships are almost ready, waiting only for the right spark to ignite the flames again. But even in the shadow, light still moves, because across 1,000 systems, Cole's message lives and Razun's voice sings, and the bond they made has grown. From two souls to millions who now wear a small symbol on their chest, two halves of a sun, one human, one Cathar, joined forever. They call it the mark of the bond, not military, not religious, not political, just a reminder that even in a galaxy that burns, there can be a hand offered instead of a blade. And Cole stands before a new group of cadets. Now not young, not strong, but steady, his voice calm as he says, I was a soldier, and then I was a traitor, and then I became something else, and you can too, not because it's easy, but because it's right. He tells them of fear and fire and friendship and choices made in moments that felt like endings but became beginnings. And when he speaks of Razun, his voice breaks not from sorrow but from gratitude. And the cadets do not cheer, do not salute, they simply stand in silence, heads bowed, not out of duty, but out of understanding. In the end, there is no parade, no anthem, just two names etched in the station walls, Cole and Razun, and beside them 6 words chosen by both before the last mission: we were enemies until we weren't. Somewhere in the dark between worlds, a warning light flashes red, and a new voice speaks across hidden channels, asking quietly, what if peace is the true threat? But across every free system, a louder voice answers back, no, peace is the proof we lived.